the podcast. I am the host, the Honey Badger, here to give it to you straight and transparent about the RV business as well as other things. Today I'm going to discuss the exposure that the RV factories may be facing here in the next 6 months. And where it comes from is from the earnings release that Lazy Days RV gave, where pretty much if you look at the last 2 quarters, they've lost $50+ million for the year so far. And it doesn't look like the third quarter is getting off to a good start. Now, again, like I say on a lot of these podcast episodes, what is said during an earnings call, you kind of have to take with a grain of salt. There's a lot of verbiage in there because, especially when you're a publicly traded company, the first thing you want to try to do is soothe the investors. They're the ones that have invested their hard-earned money into your company, and you don't want them to just bail out all at the same time. So your goal is to try to spin as much negative stuff into positive stuff. And I'm not going to get into that, but what I am going to get into is the exposure. So let's just use some fake numbers. We're going to use some fake numbers, okay? Let's say that Lazy Days RV has $200 million worth of new inventory on their lot, okay? Let's say that that's what they owe the bank, but what they originally paid the lender or borrowed from the lender to have that inventory is around double, let's say around $400 million. If that's the case and they go out of business tomorrow, then the RV factories in, I believe, 85% of the states have to buy back the inventory and pay the inventory bank, meaning the bank that lent the money to Lazy Days to have the inventory. They have to buy it back for full price. Okay. That is, so in essence, what I'm telling you is in most cases, not in all cases, but in the super majority of cases, when a dealership takes on inventory, okay, it's at almost zero risk to the bank. And that was an agreement the banks made with the RV industry years ago, okay? Before my time, they used to have to pay cash or go to their local bank and get some kind of loan to have inventory on the lot. That's how it worked. If you go back to a lot of the old timers I used to talk to about how it used to be at the factory level and how it was to be on the road as a salesperson selling travel trailers and motorhomes to dealerships, they used to say, hey, we used to have to collect a check from the dealer. We used to have some kind of banknote or transfer of funds. There was not the system that's set up today where you click a button and the money transfers with a purchase order number from one entity to the next. Hi there. So the reality is, in the RV industry, in the camping industry, if Lazy Days RV or an equivalent size dealer goes out of business, the exposure for the manufacturers, for the RV factories, can be north of $500 million. I'm going to repeat that again because I know that's got to settle. Okay. If a big corporate stock exchange company goes out of business, the RV factory's exposure, not the dealership's exposure, the RV factory exposure can be pretty close to $500 million. Scary, very scary. So I believe what's really going to happen, hi Javier, I think what's really going to happen is there have been people that have communicated with me that there is a possibility Well, let's back up for a second. There was, I'm not going to mention names because everybody gets upset when I mention this, but earlier this year, I deleted a video exposing a possible purchase of a independent RV brand. You can guess what it is in the comments section, okay? And I announced that that brand's deal with a major manufacturer like Winnebago backed out. It was basically the deal fell apart, okay? Now, most folks will tell me that, like I got off the conversation today with a guy that, was told that that deal possibly fell apart because of some internal components and personnel. From what I'm understanding, that deal fell apart because a major manufacturer is, maybe because they have the largest exposure, they may bail out Lazy Days. So Lazy Days might get a huge infusion of cash from a major manufacturer like Winnebago, if you get my drift. So instead of a major RV factory like Winnebago buying a independent owned company that wasn't started more than 3.5 years ago, they're going to end up bailing out a corporate dealership and infuse it with cash because the exposure to said manufacturers is tremendous. Okay. So imagine Camping World being in the situation. Camping World is a lot larger company, a tremendously larger company than Lazy Days. And they've been bailed out before. Camping World got bailed out when they were half the size they are. Because again, the exposure shows that they're either too big to fail, or pretty much, from my perspective, Lazy Days is being smart and being like, you know what? We'll just go out of business. We'll walk away. So either this is what I've been saying. Hey, K-Tech, how you doing? This is what I've been saying. Remember what I've been saying for the last 8 months. The last 8 months, I have said the relationship between the RV factories and the RV dealerships is deteriorating. It is falling apart. And remember that RV Miles put me in one of his videos and even mentioned, even though he couldn't completely agree with me because, again, he's got some things he has to be politically correct about because of his contacts in the industry and he doesn't want to lose them. But even he would agree of what I said. And by the way, there are monster YouTubers in the RV space that have told me directly that they agree with me, that the relationship between the RV manufacturers and the RV dealers is falling apart faster than we have to change baby diapers. So here's my point behind this. Remember what I keep saying. I keep saying that the RV manufacturers 2 years ago could have solved this inventory problem. But hey, remember, a stuffed dealer is a loyal dealer. This is going to be the biggest issue moving forward, is if you're not going to take care of the inventory problem now, the dealers will make sure you take care of it later. And if Lazy Days RV goes out of business, watch out. But I don't think they're going to go out of business, because I think a big, huge corporate manufacturer like Winnebago will bail them out because they have no choice because the exposure's so big. And once a big factory bails out a company like Lazy Days, watch other dealers start basically using the same thing. Hey, you don't want to help us? We'll just go out of business. Good luck. It's a plain and simple fact. If every dealer just went to the manufacturers all together as one group and said, you either bail out our inventory or we'll just close our doors. come get your stuff. Good luck. You're not going to have any dealers to sell it for you. No, I'm not a boomer. I'm Generation X, Gen X. So this is where we're at. A major manufacturer is going to bail out a stock exchange corporate dealership. Pretty interesting, right? All right. The exposure is going to get harder and bigger because we're now running into another situation. And I talked to a really good guy over the phone today, okay? Had a good conversation. You know, a lot of people assume that Grand Design RV is Lippert's largest client when it comes to frames, okay? That is a complete and false narrative. If you take Grand Design by itself, without Winnebago, without Forest River, without Thor, without Genesis Supreme, without Alliance, you just move them out of the way. They represent around 5% of Lippert's total business. And if I remember correctly, in some cases and in some years, they represented up to 15%. So that means the two biggest clients of Lippert Components, including their frames, is Forest River and Thor Industries. So basically your Keystones, your Jaycos, your Coachman Chaparrals, your Forest River Riverstones, your Heartland Landmarks. I can keep going and going and going, right? So in reality, if Grand Design RV did not exist, we would not be talking about frame failure and frame flex as much as we have over the last 2 years. What I challenge everyone to do that watches this podcast and sometimes doesn't believe me about this, go on YouTube. Go take every fifth wheel brand that has been built in the last 5-6 years and put the name of that fifth wheel brand and frame failure and see how many videos there are, how old the videos are. Watch the video and see if it was solved. It's going to shock you. The results will make you go and pause and say, maybe this isn't all of Lippert's fault. I'm not saying Lippert is not a problem. I do blame Lippert for part of the problem. You have some really crappy welds that have been put on record. You have accusations of Chinese steel. You have all these accusations that nobody has publicly come forward and squashed 100%. Okay? But if you go back in history and you go through the Reddit posts and you go through the YouTube videos and you go through Rumble and you go through TikTok, you go through all these things, the percentage will shock you. And you'll wake up and realize that all the accusations, or I shouldn't say all, the super majority of the accusations come from one company. One. Not all, but the super majority come from one company. So when people tell me that every fifth wheel built is a piece of crap, that every travel trailer ever built is a piece of crap, when Liz Amazing and folks like Liz Amazing always say that every RV is a pile of crap, it's to get clicks and views. Because that's simply not true. Period. Not true. Is it true that there are ones that have major problems on occasion? Absolutely. Does the factory always do the right thing? Absolutely not. Should they be exposed when they do the wrong thing? Absolutely. When something's so bad that a coach falls apart while it's being driven down the road, should that be exposed and be talked about? Absolutely. Period. But they are not all a pile of crap. Not all of them. Not everyone built. And not the majority of them either. I've sold thousands of RVs. And there have only been a few that have been an absolute pile of junk. I've sold an Airstream that was an absolute piece of garbage. I ended up having to get the thing bought back for the guy. I've had a small little 16-foot teardrop by New Camp fall apart. One of the best builders in the RV industry. But it's one out of so many I've sold that the people are very happy with them. The internet is a place for people to complain. The internet is a place for people to complain anonymously and throw accusations out because they're angry, they're upset, things have gone wrong. Every time they turn around, something crappy happens. But when you're super happy and you're not paid, you're not going to go and make videos about how happy you are with your RV. Not if you're not making money. Evening, Kevin. That's a fact. And it's not just a fact with RVs, it's a fact with cars. It's a fact with boats. It's a fact with televisions. It's a fact with gaming. When people are pissed off, they'll scream to high heaven on the internet. When they are extremely happy and everything's going good and they're not making a paycheck to make a video, they could care less about the internet. They'd rather watch than make content. And I don't blame them. I don't think Liz has mental health issues. I think Liz just is trying to make money. I think Liz is just trying to make a living. That's what I think. I think she's etched out a very good niche where she is the lady to go to when things go terrible. And she says she has the best clickbait titles and the best clickbait thumbnails in the industry. And I give her credit because I actually, I admire her in a lot of respects. Yes, I get upset with her and I don't like her style about things, but I admire it. She makes a crap load of money talking about all the negative crap that occurs in the RV industry. You got to give her credit where credit's due. You know, I just don't have that in me to carve that out and tell everybody everything's a pile of crap. I don't have that in me. I'd rather give you what the truth is, not lay out, how heavenly everything is and everything's so perfect and everything's so amazing. And oh my God, let me jump in the air and tell everybody how great everything is. And I've never seen it before. And it's so innovative. I don't have it in me to do that either. So. Oh, that's cool, Dean. I'm glad you got something you liked. That was good, man. I know you've been through hell. I know you've really been through hell. So these are the type of things that I try to straighten out because I know that there's a lot of negative press and the negative press needs the attention and needs to be talked about. That's why I talk about the exposure at the factories. That's what we talk about. We've talked about frame failure on this podcast, probably at least for 50, 60 episodes. Okay. But I also give credit where credit's due in a lot of respect. Okay. Now, where I want to give credit where credit's due today is I want to give credit specifically right now to BAL. BAL right now is doing a tremendous job trying to get new products out onto the market so that way they can be a better competitor against Lippert. So that way factories have an alternative, which will help drop pricing, make pricing better competitive, make innovation more competitive. Look, there's nothing wrong with being a billion-dollar corporation like Lippert. I have no problem with that stuff. I'm a capitalist. You may have different opinions about things, but I'm okay with people getting rich, okay? But the reality is is Lippert needs a bigger competitor, and it doesn't have one. And BAL may end up that competitor. And that's something that's going to be very, very positive for the industry, both in the frame department, hot water heaters, refrigerators, air conditioners, just components in general. So from what I'm understanding is they're going to be a bigger competitor in the RV space within the next 2 to 3 years when it comes to components. I'm also under the understanding that there's also 2 other companies that are starting up that are not just going to start up a company and sell to Lippert right away. These guys are highly competitive and not just going to give in and sell a company within 2 years of it being successful. These guys are like, not only do they have lots of money, but they also have a super big ego, and they are getting into the parts industry part of the RV business as well. I believe that they should be opening up their stores, or I should say their wholesale side of the industry by the end of 2027. So good stuff. Employees are on drugs. You're funny. Lippert created a monopoly. They bought up all the suppliers. Yeah, it's, I mean, I think that's going to change. That's going to change. I know it's going to change. They have do frames that do Huck bolts. NXG is a frame only company, and NXG does all Huck bolt frames, but they only do travel trailer Huck bolt frames. They don't do fifth wheel frames. BAL apparently is going to do fifth wheel frames. It seems like, and here's what happens, guys. This is where the positivity of the RV market taking a crap is beneficial for everybody except for the dealers that went out of business. Okay, is you're starting to see some of these guys, that these investment firms are starting to take a look at, hey, you know what? Lippert's taken a hit because of allegations against Grand Design. There is a spot for a big RV supply company ready to rock and roll. And the interesting part about when you start seeing guys that both have an ego and money, those are the guys that end up competitors for those big companies. What happens a lot of time is you'll get a guy that's a little guy like me, and we build this fabulous hot water heater, and we start supplying it to the RV industry, and Lippert loses sales on it. Well, we're doing that on purpose because we're trying to make a quick buck. We know Lippert's going to buy us out and make us very rich men or very rich people. Okay. Then you got the guy that's already made all the money, and now it's about their ego and about their legacy. Those are the guys, from what I'm understanding, are the ones that are going to collaborate and come into the RV market, or at least invest in the RV market, to bring about a large alternative to Lippert. Now, that doesn't happen overnight. That's going to be a year or two process. But we're already seeing it with BAL. We're already starting to see it with some of these smaller vendor companies, because I'm starting to see personally in some of the 2025 units, I'm starting to see non-Lippert components in them. We're talking about water pumps. We're talking about microwaves. We're talking about solar systems. There's a lot of stuff that's being put into 2025s that do not come from Lippert or a Lippert subsidiary. So we're already starting to see it. We didn't see it for the last 2 years. The last 2 years, it's been mainly, everything I've ever seen in there is a lot of the Lippert components everywhere. So apparently these smaller companies are finally starting to come along, and they're starting to actually, the RV manufacturers are starting to look and say, hey, look, I can go buy this. You know, the tripping over dollars to save pennies is slowly calming down. Okay. Lippert's not going to go out of business anytime soon. They're never going to go out of business. They built a they've built a big company. They've bought a lot of companies. A lot of the components they do sell are very good. A lot of subsidiary companies that they've bought are very good companies with very good products. Again, one of the biggest issues that we have, and I've told guys at Lippert this that I've talked to over the phone. I'm not going to expose who they are, but I've said it personally to those guys. Look, the problem is that everybody wants to point the finger at each other. It's exactly what I told somebody at Lippert that I talked to over the phone a couple months ago, okay? Everybody wants to point the finger at each other, okay? Nobody wants to take accountability. Nobody wants to answer a question directly. And nobody wants to talk to anybody without a lawyer, without a script, without, questions up front. Everybody's so scared about losing face. And I blame people like Liz Amazing for that problem. I blame people like Sean Hannity for that problem. I blame people like Don Lemon and Anderson Cooper and whoever the gal is over MSNBC. I blame people like that for the problem of let's just have a conversation. Let's have a normal interview where I ask a question, you answer it, I find something wrong with that answer, and I rebuttal and force an actual answer. We don't have those conversations anymore. We stopped having those conversations, about 15, 20 years ago. Now everything's scripted content. Look at half the stuff we see on TikTok. All these cheater stuff, how to catch a cheater or to catch a cheater or any of that stuff. It's all scripted. It's all fake. It's all fugazi. The van life people. How about the majority of the people that say they live in a van, right? That they built for themselves. And I catch them at a Holiday Inn. Like, really? So you're just doing what normal van people do. You buy a van to travel around the country, spend a night or two in one at a creek or a really hard to get to spot. And then the rest of the time, you're in a Hampton, Holiday Inn, Hilton Hotel. That's how my grandparents did it. They owned a Road Trek for 12 years. I think they may have in 12 years stayed maybe 24 total nights sleeping in the actual van. I mean, everything's scripted content anymore. Press releases, news interviews, political ideology crap, conventions. It's all scripted content. It's all to get gotcha moments in front of you. There's no more conversation pieces where two people go live and just have a talk. It all has an agenda to it. That's why I've been trying to get Mark Wahlberg on this podcast. I think Mark and I would have a great conversation about his Airstream dealerships and about the RV industry and where it's going. I've been pushing so hard. I've been tagging him in like 20 posts a week, hoping that somebody goes, hey, this guy wants you on his podcast. Crap, I'd fly to him. Let's hit live. Let's go. I would love to get one of these guys live here on the podcast. Let's have a conversation. It might be an uncomfortable conversation, but it's going to be a conversation. The only real person left that has the ability to do is Joe Rogan. And even then, it's like, I think sometimes he has to be careful what he asks people because otherwise he won't come on his show. It's ridiculous. Last thing I really want to say about this whole thing so far is I'm going to do a non-live episode that I'm going to release next week. It's going to be an hour-long episode, and an hour-long episode is going to go into detail about some of the things that I have learned that I really can't cover in 30 minutes. But I don't want it to be a live stream because I think that would kind of defy the purpose of it. So I believe I'm going to release it on Friday of next week, probably Friday morning, it's late Thursday night, early Friday morning, so everybody can kind of watch or listen to it live or listen to it over the weekend. I also got a request to go back on Spotify. Apparently, some of the RV executives at the factory level used to listen to me on Spotify on their car ride into work. And I'm like, I got a message from a fellow YouTuber through Instagram that said, hey, gotten some people that have contacted me to see if I could contact you and see if you go back on Spotify. I'm like, well, I'll have to look into that. I don't know. The reason why I stuck with YouTube and Rumble is because they're monetized. And I know that most people don't understand this, but I do this to make a little bit of a living. This is eventually going to be my full-time gig, doing the podcast and the YouTube channel. That's the goal. I mean, I want to part-time work at dealerships, and I want to part-time work in the retail side of the industry, but I don't want to do that forever. I'd rather, find something like this that I get paid to talk and pass on my knowledge. So I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I haven't quite gotten there yet. So if I do, I'll let everybody know. I'll make an announcement somehow, some way, maybe on Twitter. I do have a Facebook group. If you go to my main channel, in all of the video descriptions, there's the Facebook group. I'm also on Twitter, which lately I've been building the Twitter account, but I found out there's a lot of young ladies from OnlyFans that have been following me on Twitter that are subscribers to this podcast because they actually want to get an RV. I find that very cool. It looks like we're expanding our reach out to not only, our Gen X and our early millennial and boomer generation, but apparently Gen Y and the later millennials. They're starting to come into some money, because of social media, OnlyFans, stuff like that. And they're starting to want to get into the RV lifestyle. So I'm finding that very interesting, because I wouldn't think that somebody that's 19, 20, 21 years old that's doing adult industry stuff independently on a platform like OnlyFans would be interested in going RVing. I figured I wasn't interested it has nothing to do with them themselves. It's just like at that age, if I was making that kind of obscene money at that age, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, the last thing I'm thinking about is RVing. I'm thinking about getting on planes and going to Dubai, or getting on planes and visiting exotic countries. But apparently this new generation of this young generation, 18 to 26-year-old young ladies are, hey, 24-foot motorhome, hey, 22, 23-foot travel trailer and a truck. Oh, that's good, Patty. Yeah, my Facebook group, I think, has 90 members. People don't typically join the Facebook groups. I have more Twitter followers than I do people in the Facebook group. But my Facebook page, which is Levingston RV Services on Facebook, actually has close to 2,800 people on it. So more people follow that than they do the group. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna drive back home. I dropped off the family up in Oregon a couple hours ago. So we'll see you guys on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Have a good one.